Okay, so Team ContiBreak will now be trying to put up videos aside from matches, one of which is what you're watching now. And it will be our own countdown list. Okay, so this is our top 6 picks for the best cards from VEBO3 Ultra Rare Miracle Collection.
Welcome to Damage Check.
Okay, so starting off from Nectar at 6, we have the Double R, the Maiden of Trailing Rose. Okay, so you have the skills right there, and now we'll be moving on to our pros and cons. Okay, so the first one will be the Imaginary Gift, which is Force. Moving on will be that it Spirit calls up to 2 plant tokens, depending on which circle it was placed on. So you can call up to 2 plant tokens when it's on the Vanguard, and just a plant token when it's on the rear guard. This is pretty much useful since it can be used even if it wasn't placed from hand. So if it was placed due to a Spirit call, it can still give you another plant token. Okay, now for the third one, it can give plus 5,000 power to 3 plant tokens. Okay, now this can ensure that a damage will be dealt the turn that it was used, since you'll be giving power to most of your lanes. Okay, now for the fourth one, it can set up for Cecilia, since Cecilia's causes that you retire 1 rear guard. So Cecilia can retire a plant token which was called from Trailing Rose. Now for the last pro, that it is useful in both standard and premium since it has its maiden name. Okay, now for the con, it's not really that strong after the turn that it was placed, since it only has its axe skill for the rest of the turns, and it is heavily reliant on plant tokens. Our next pick is from Gold Paladin. At 5, we have the Triple R, the Knight of Superior Skills, Bowman's. Okay, so for our pros, with Bowman's skill, you can fulfill the conditions for Blonde Cell Superior Ride. So another good thing about this card is that its first skill can be used when it is placed on either the Vanguard or the rear guard circle. So this is great for rushing and for deck trimming. Okay, so what's great about its Superior Call is it's specific. You don't have to rely on RNG for you to get the card that you want, and it's also an opportunity for the player to shuffle his or her deck. Okay, now with its second skill, it can be a 13,000 beater, which is useful against Force Clans. And of course, it is useful in both standard and premium because it's basically a staple in every SL deck. Okay, now for our cons, its first skill can only be activated when it's placed from hand, so that's very much a restriction. For the second, it's not really that strong after the turn it was placed, since it's basically now a vanilla. Moving on, we have our pick for the best card from Gold Paladin. At 4, we have the VR, the Incandescent Lion Blonde Ezel. Okay, now with our pros, we have the first one, the Imaginary Gift, of course. For the second one, it can make the player be the first to ride to grade 3 regardless of which player went first. And the cost for its Sup Ride is not that heavy. You only have to Soul Blast your starting Vanguard. And with a Bowman's in your deck, the condition is not really that hard to pull off. With its second skill, you can Superior Call a rear guard for an additional attack or a tax depending on which card you called from hand. And our last pro will be that it's useful in both standard and premium, since it's still a Sup Ride and you can basically use the old Curve as your standing Vanguard for it. Okay, now for our cons, is that its first skill can only be done once per game and is not really ensured to happen every game. Now for our second con is that its second skill is not that strong and it's usually dependent on the card that will be Superior Called from hand. Okay, now we're halfway through our list, and at 3rd, we have our second best pick from Nectar, the VR White Lily Musketeer Cecilia. Okay, so starting off with the Imaginary Gift, Force. Next is that you can trade in one of your rear guards for 2 or 3 rear guards. So you can basically trade in one of your plant tokens to a more reliable rear guard. So it can give plus 10 power to your front row when the conditions are met. So the additional plus 10 with the force markers on your rear guard, so that's basically an insured lane that will hit your opponent's Vanguard. Okay, so the best thing about this card is that its skill is Act, so you can use it every turn as long as you can pay the cost. And of course, it's useful in both Standard and Premium with the Musketeer name and the Force marker. Okay, now for cons, that it must be the second grade 3 ride for its skill to be maximized. And its superior call from its skill is pretty much luck based, so you're just gonna have to hope that your top 5 will be calling in rearguards that you can use. At 2, we have our best pick from Nectar and our surprise entry, the plant token. Okay, now we're moving on with our pros with our plant token. So it's a rearguard that doesn't take up space in the deck. It can definitely work as a dependable attacker with a force marker and bonuses from other cards. It works well with the most cards from the set since most of them either superior calls or give bonuses to the plant tokens. It can save up a player's hand by being generated from other cards, so it's easily generated. 6 cards from the set can superior call plant tokens. Okay, so for the cons, of course it doesn't have a skill. It's basically just a token with power and it's just that. Other than that, it's not really that useful in Premium. Okay, now for our number 1, our best pick from Angel Feather, the VR. Crimson Impact Metatron. Starting off with the pros, the imaginary gift, Protect. So it can call a face down card from damage and turn into a rearguard, so with the cost from its skill, so it's technically a CB1. And it's also a chance to open up your resources. Okay, now moving on, it is technically healing 1 damage since you're calling a rearguard from your damage and not replacing it with a card from your deck. Okay, now and with the heal, it is a big advantage in Standard since damage really matters in a Standard match. Now to help with dealing damage, it can be 27,000 base power when its conditions are met. Now with its second skill, it can open up a counterblast and get a chance for a trigger effect. Okay, now is useful in both Standard and Premium. Okay, so Metatron embodies what Angel Feather does, so healing, calling from damage, and replacing cards from your damage zone. Okay, now moving to our con, its first skill is not possible if it was rolled as the first grade trait. So that's our list for our picks for the best cards from VAB03, and if you have any suggestions or comments, you know what to do.